This is my PowerPoint on the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. Okay, we're going to touch on a few biographical notes of the autobiography. Benjamin Franklin was born on January 6th of 1706. He's the 10th child of Josiah and Abiah Franklin, but he's the 15th child of Josiah, who had 7 children from a previous marriage. So all in total, Josiah had 17 kids. Benjamin Franklin's father was a candle maker and a soap maker. Benjamin Franklin entered grammar school at the age of 8. He was a very avid reader, excelled in reading more than the other students in his class. But he ended up only staying 2 years because he had a poor math performance. He said that math really wasn't his strong suit, so he ended up coming back home and actually working for his father in the soap shop. But he truly doesn't like it because he said he'd rather be a sailor or a seaman, and he likes reading. Then he becomes an apprentice at his brother James' print shop at the age of 12. During this time as an apprentice, his brother goes to jail because there was an editorial or an op-ed written in the paper that pretty much spoke against the local government, and his brother James refused to give up the source or the author of the period or the editorial, so they put him in jail for over a year. And actually, Benjamin Franklin ran the newspaper while his brother was in prison. But at the age of 17, Benjamin Franklin sails away from home to Philadelphia looking for a job in printing. His brother feels somewhat betrayed, and this causes a lot of anger and hatred and animosity, which lasted for a number of years, I think about 10 years. Okay, I want to touch on a few other notes. In 1732, he started to publish his Poor Richard Almanac. And if you know anything about an almanac, it has like weather forecast, puzzles, includes a calendar, things of that nature. He sold about 10,000 copies per year. Did this for about 25 years. This is probably his primary source of income for many years, along with his printing company, which he later established. Let's say 1730, he established the Union Fire Company. There was a lot of fires going on in Philadelphia. People's houses burning down, so he came up with the idea of creating a group of people that would learn how to fight fires, teach people how to protect their valuables, and how to quickly put out a fire as soon as possible. In 1736, because of his vast knowledge in printing, he gets a contract or a job to print money for the state of New Jersey. I believe he did this a few times for a few years. In 1739, he invents the Franklin stove, or what they call an open-ended fireplace that save energy, where like you can warm up a whole entire room with less fuel and energy than the previous heating apparatus that they had at the time. And then like 1746, he started experiencing electricity, helps invent like different type of light fixtures. Found out that that lightning, it was electrical current, and we'll probably get into detail more later with some of these things and other things too. And in 1790, which was not in his autobiography, but he died April 17th of that year. Okay, we want to get into a few of the major characters of the autobiography. First and foremost, we know would be Benjamin Franklin. He's pretty much the writer of this autobiography. Josiah Franklin, which is the father of Benjamin, he owned a candle shop and a soap shop, which I've already previously stated. But he also nurtured Ben in his writing style, because he would read some of Ben's writings. He would debate. Ben, in friends, he would debate each other on certain topics, and his father would see how he would write, and pretty much told him that some of the flaws he had in his writing styles. And Benjamin took this as pretty much a challenge and made him read different books, more books, get books from overseas, see different people and master writers and how they would debate, and that's what created. That's how Benjamin became such a great writer that he was. Abia Franklin, that would be his mother. James is Ben's older brother. That's where Ben was an apprentice in the shop until he left Philadelphia. And like I said, it made James pretty mad for a long time. I think for about 10 years. John Collins, that was a guy that Ben would debate with through letters to hone their debating skills. This is the guy that would go back and forth with Ben, throughout his years. Later on in life, he would travel with Ben over to Europe, and on one of his travels over there to get, I think, some funding for a print shop or what have you. But he became an alcoholic, and him and Benjamin got into an argument about, well, actually, it was a trip they had taken. John started acting erratic. He was drunk, swore wasn't going to roll back home. They got into a big argument, a big fight, and that pretty much ended their friendship, and Benjamin never saw his money ever again. Samuel Keimer, he gave Ben his first printing job in Philadelphia. He was actually referred to Sam Keimer by another guy of John Reed, who was, to the next point, Deborah Reed's father. And Deborah Reed was Benjamin's first wife, daughter of John Reed. And Benjamin lived with them when he first got to Philadelphia, because that's why he went to Philadelphia, thinking he would get a job with this guy, and ended up not getting a job. So his father sent him over to her father sent him over to Sam Keimer to get a job, and he ended up getting a job there with him. And they pretty much, back to Sam Keimer, they were together for some years, then kind of had a falling out. Then they got back, or tried to get back, restart the business, and they pretty much did until Benjamin Franklin took it over. And to round out the major characters, we got William Franklin, which is Benjamin Franklin's oldest son, who he originally writes his memoirs to. Now, a point that's not mentioned in the book is that William Franklin was born out of wedlock. And these are one of the many things, like later on when I discuss some of the things that I thought were missing out the story that should have been put in the story. That was one of the things, that the birth of William Franklin, and other things too. And James Ralph was another one of Ben's friends who traveled to England. He was part of his little crew he had, the Junto, of a group of scholars, of people who would read, debate each other, and write in the newspaper and different books. He ended up going to England with Benjamin Franklin, and he too borrowed a lot of money from Benjamin Franklin, but I think it was an excuse. I don't think he probably had no intention of paying them back anyway, but his excuse was he found out that Benjamin Franklin was trying to court his girlfriend while he was away working in a school, and he used this as an excuse to say, I'm not going to pay you any more money, and they never spoke again after that. Okay, now we'll get into the plot of the story. We'll go to part one, and there will be a few slides. Also, only supposed to be 2 slides, but it has to be, I say, 4 slides, because there are 4 different parts to this novel that I had to read. In part 1, the first plot, I would think, it has a rags to riches story. Benjamin Franklin was born to a modest family. They didn't make a whole lot of money. I mean, you had to imagine, you got 17 kids living in a house, and your father makes candles and stuff like that. So sure, there wasn't a lot of money, but he took the skills he learned from his father. He took the skills he learned from his brother, his reading skills, his sense of wanting, I guess, to succeed and excel, and created himself and made himself into a very successful, powerful, well-respected man throughout this continent and over in the European continent. Like I say, he had 16 other siblings. Remember, he had also, like I say, very little schooling. He only went to school for 2 years, and that was it. After that, he worked, but he was an avid reader. He said in the autobiography, he can't remember a time when he didn't know how to read. So, and he also, like I say, worked in a soap and candle shop with his father. So that probably instilled a little bit of work ethic in him, I'm sure. He was apprentice, his brother's apprentice for about 5 years until he ventured off into his own to find his own way. And once he got to Philadelphia, I mean, he had many small jobs in printing before like starting his own shop. And also too, he had to do the same thing with Europe because he went out there to look for money and didn't get the letter of credit that he was promised to by the governor of the state at the time of Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. And so he had to work to make a way because he had no money, and like I say, his friend pretty much borrowed all the money he could and never gave it back. Okay, part 2 starts off with 2 letters from guys named Abel James and Benjamin Vaughn, and they're pretty much trying to encourage Mr. Franklin to continue writing his autobiography because they felt the part 1 that he had wrote and that they had read was great for the American people to learn and to read. It teaches you how to, like I say, become successful, how he started out from nothing, created something on his own. I mean, just what you call the American dream. So he agreed, came up with part 2, said that he would have a little trouble remembering dates, but he can recall all the events. He re-examines the creation of the library that he created in part 1 with the group of the Junto. And this is like a subscription library where people can come borrow books, for a fee or what have you if they don't bring them back. Kind of like pretty much like the library system we have today. And he knew he had to get books from overseas, like from England and Europe, because he felt the books over here was inadequate. And the library became very successful, and I think it lasted for a long time. But part 2, like I said, is short, but it talks about in detail how he governs his life. He said he's not really religious, but he believes in God. He believes in right and wrong, and he governs his life on these 13 virtues of temperance, which means don't overdo eating or drinking, don't drink to get drunk, on silence, to avoid trifling conversation, keep things in order, let each party business have its time, which is a quote in here. Resolution, like resolve all your problems without fail. Be frugal, don't waste in the industry, lose no time, cut off all unnecessary actions. Number 7 would be sincerity. Don't be hurtful or deceitful to people. 8, be justice, do not wrong anybody. It should be a benefit to everyone. 9, do things in moderation, like avoid extremes. 10 would be cleanliness, do not tolerate uncleanliness. 11, tranquility, don't be trifling, avoid things that are avoidable, accidents. Chastity, I guess abstain from sex except for health and for offspring. Never just do it just to be doing it, or and hurt someone or where it can hurt somebody else's reputation. And humility, like say, imitate Jesus and Socrates is the way he put it. Okay, quick notes about the different parts that he wrote. Now, he wrote his first part of his autobiography to his son in 1771 while he was on vacation in England. The second part he didn't write until about 12 years later in 1783 while he was in France. And then the third part, which is part we're going to talk about now, he didn't write that until about 1788 when he was back in America. Now, part 3 speaks of a lot more of the other accomplishments that he made and things that he did throughout his life up until about 1757. Like I said before, he wrote the Poor Richard's Almanac. He also had a paper like The Plain Truth, which he started. say he learned different languages. He learned 3 different languages of French, Italian, and Spanish. And then actually after about 10 years, he finally made amends with his brother during this time. He also he was appointed to many different commissions. He was like in 1736. He was appointed to the clerk of the General Assembly. So his son, which he did not name in the book, died of smallpox in 1736. He was only 4 years old, which is, I guess, he was born about a year or less after William was born, but this guy was born by his wife. Also during this time, the junto would branch out into different little smaller sects to try to recruit more people, to get more people involved in the reading and the literature part of America's growth. He also helped create the fire department, the Union Fire Company during this time. His printing company doing very well during this time also. And he also establishes like a university and hospitals. University of Pennsylvania. And he also helped create a hospital for sick people. During this time too, toward the end, he sold his printing shop. Like I said before, his almanac was making plenty of money for him, so he really wasn't hurting for money. So he sold the print shop so he could be more part of like the different commissions or part of the government positions that he would have. Like I say, he started his academy in 1743. He started University of Philadelphia in 1749. The plain truth was for try to help create a defense system for the wars that was going on like overseas, because he's afraid that the British could come over and start warring with the colonists. 1748, he sells his printing business and becomes the Commissioner of the Peace. In 1749, becomes a commission for the trade treaty with the Native Americans at this time too. In 1751, he founded a hospital in Philadelphia with Dr. Thomas Bond. He said to raise about 2,000 pounds, and I think he raised that and a lot more. So also during this time, he invented his stove, or the Franklin stove as they call it, or the open wood burning fireplace. And he starts his kite experiments with electricity, and just trying to find a use for electricity. And finally, the plot for part 4. Main thing, it was not his original memoir. Actually, he died before he actually published this. I had this published. We believe someone else did it, found it, and stuck it in like the second edition of his memoirs or what have you. But he just speaks of one of his final trips to London, where he tries to persuade the king and the council to allow the U.S. colonies to set their own laws. But he did it to no avail. And that was pretty much the end of his autobiography. A little bit of background from the time period and the autobiography itself. During this time, America was still expanding, with still 13 colonies or states or what have you. So it was really a need. You could tell it was a need for literary explosion, because, as Benjamin Franklin said, he said a lot of the books in America were inadequate. So that's why he would order or buy books from overseas and have them brought to here to be placed into his libraries. His is still under English rule, as Part 4 has stated. He tried to go over there because he felt that the colonists should be able to make their own rules and laws and things. But like I said, the English was not trying to give that up. Story itself, they said, was like the really first self-help book that was worldly accepted. I mean, it was a bestseller at the time, and maybe still one of the top 10 bestsellers of as a self-help book. And also during this time, religion was a building block to establish this country. I mean, it's what they used. Christianity was the what's called a foundation. You had a Protestant religions and the Puritan religions and the Pilgrims and all those different denominations of Christianity. But they was all used to justify how, they treated other people that they felt may have been savages, like Indians or like, Africans that they brought here as slaves and things. So that's just a little bit of background. During this time, America's getting ready to start this, Revolutionary War. So what would be some of the main points that I got out of the book? One, it is a self-help book, as we stated. Won't go too much in detail with that. Also, I would think Benjamin Franklin supposed to be called himself a humble guy, but yet I feel he was like a braggart because he kind of spoke of a lot of accomplishments that he made. People that pretty much tried to stop him or hold him back, and how he pretty much outsmarted everybody into becoming the person that he was. He wasn't an avid writer; he was an avid reader. He wrote. He had a printing shop. So he wrote in the newspaper. He wrote books, autobiography. He wrote almanacs. He wrote in other people's newspapers. So he was an avid writer. He was an inventor. He invented, the bifocals. He also invented, which is something that was not in the book. He invented some fins, like swim fins. But he, as the book stated, he was an avid swimmer, loved to swim, taught others how to swim. But he also, like I said, invented swim fins, but it was for his hands. And he done this in his teenage years. So, like I said, this was not in the book. He was a politician. I'm not going to say really a politician, but he did help try to establish some laws in this country, some freedoms. Actually, like I said, it's not in the book either, but, he helped write, the Declaration of Independence, drafted for the Declaration of Independence. So, and he was a successful businessman with the in printing, very successful in printing. Now, in evaluating this autobiography, some of the good points I see are: one, it is a rags to riches story. I do believe it could help motivate people that start out with nothing, to give them a sense of understanding of how to become someone that it pretty much takes hard work to do it. I mean, the guy was a self-taught reader, when he was young, and in reading pretty much got him to where he became successful. And like I say, the good point too is an inventor, which led to helping inventor, and he's well respected, like I say, throughout the world. Government councils, because there were times when he said he was reelected to different appointee positions throughout the year, and he wouldn't have to go out and try to win votes or anything, because people just vote on him just because of his track record. Now, also in my evaluation, some of the bad points are he leave out some very important events in American history. Like I said, it stops in 1757 is when he stops writing, but he lives well after that. And it says nothing about the American Revolution, the war. It says nothing about his involvement in creating the Declaration of Independence. It stops 20 years before that even happens. Also leaves out details of his own personal life. Like, there's not no mention of his kids. Like I say, he had one kid die at the age of 4, smallpox. Like I say, that son's name is not even mentioned. And it's funny because that was like the son from his wife. But yet he writes this memoir to his oldest son, who was born out of wedlock. So there are no dates of his kids' births, or like say names of his kids, how many kids he had. Because history showed that he did have kids out of wedlock, and he did have kids with his wife too. Or how long he was married, none of that. It's like a lot of stuff is left out of this autobiography. So in my opinion, is this a story that I would recommend others to read? I would say maybe. But I would say yes, definitely. If you want to read it, it'd be because of part one, because that to me is the whole basis. That is the whole, it's the foundation of everything. Like I say, it speaks about his beginnings and how he became who he was. I mean, that's a story that pretty much everybody wants to know. How did Benjamin Franklin become Benjamin Franklin? Now, the other three parts, part two is good because it tells you about how he governed his life. So you can pretty much tie that in with part one for sure, because it gives detail of something that's very important on, like say, the inner person of Benjamin Franklin and how he thinks. Part three, it's more of him just talking about more of his accomplishments. So I mean, that's nice. And then part four, just talk about a trip he made that was not successful. But I mean, it's three stories in one. So I mean, once you read the first part, I think the first part will bring you in, keep you interested, and then the other three parts, are just to me not as interesting. And that concludes my summary of the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. My name is Marlon Coleman, and I thank you for listening.